Hello, my name is Oliver Greff. I'm Product Manager for SAP UI5. In the second unit of Week 3, Building Modern Web Applications with SAP UI5, of the openSAP course SAP Fiori Overview, Design, Develop and Deploy, I want to give you an overview of SAP UI5. It is the UI technology to build modern Fiori applications. To start, I want to give you an overview of SAP UI5, explain what it is and how it's being used by SAP Fiori. Also, I want to explain a couple of highlights and capabilities of SAP UI5. What I want you to take away from this course is an understanding of why SAP UI5 is a modern and efficient way to create Fiori web applications. SAP UI5 is an HTML framework to build enterprise-grade applications. SAP UI5 is being developed in parallel and in close collaboration with the SAP Fiori design. And as such, you can say that the SAP UI5 UI technology is the reference technology, the reference implementation of the Fiori design. So by using SAP UI5, you get a consistent Fiori user experience. But what else? There's also technical aspects. For example, Fiori comes with a number of tools to develop with SAP UI5 for SAP and for you as a customer or partner. And there's other capabilities, there's other qualities, for example, enterprise qualities standards which are important if you develop applications in the enterprise context. For example, security or accessibility. And this is a main advantage of SAP UI5 because you get this out of the box. To understand how UI5 is being used, I want to explain that SAP UI5 are web applications. Earlier in this course, you heard that Fiori can also be implemented with native mobile technologies, for example, Apple iOS or Android. Now, how is this different? Web applications are running in a browser, and SAP UI5 supports all major browsers. And by this, an SAP UI5 application can run in all these browsers and many different platforms, operating systems, and devices, be it desktop devices or mobile devices. So this is a very common scenario in today's world. The advantage is that you develop an application once and you can use it on all different platforms, on all different devices, just by developing the application once. To understand how SAP can be seen in the context of the portfolio of SAP, we created this slide. You can see that SAP UI5 is being used in a growing number of SAP solutions. And again, there's a number of tools to work with UI5, to develop UI5, to extend UI5 applications. And there's a number of them. Most prominently, I want to mention the SAP Business Application Studio. The other thing I have to highlight here on this slide is the openSAP course we have for SAP UI5. So there is a dedicated openSAP course to learn how to implement, how to code with SAP UI5. It's a hands-on course for developers, and we already received very good feedback on that, so I can recommend that. So that was kind of an overview of SAP UI5. And now I want to highlight 4 topics. First one is obviously the Fiori design and how the Fiori design and the UI5 technology evolve together. Second topic is UI flexibility. Many customers and partners do not use SAP standard delivery out of the box, but they have requirements to adapt, to extend the standard applications. And here SAP UI5 helps. The third topic is new trends in web technology. So we at SAP, we must not rest on our proprietary technology. We need to understand what's happening outside SAP with web technologies in the web and development space, and need to incorporate things which are happening there. Fourth topic is UI5 web components, where we can see how web components help to bring a consistent Fiori user experience to many solutions and products. So for each of these topics, I want to go a bit deeper and provide some more details. So let's go to the first topic, SAP Fiori design. By now, you know that SAP Fiori 3 is SAP's target design system. SAP Fiori 3 provides UX consistency and many innovations from design and user experience aspects. Cards is one example. But there's more to Fiori 3, not just design aspects, but also technology aspects. It is important that Fiori can be adopted across many platforms and solutions. It is important that Fiori comes with an efficient development environment and UI technologies. It is important that Fiori is fast and Fiori is open for new innovations, for example, in the technology space. So all of these aspects are important. And as I mentioned, the Fiori design and the SAP UI5 technology are being developed in close collaboration. The second topic I want to provide some more details is UI flexibility. As you probably know, not many customers and partners use SAP applications out of the box. They usually have some requirements to adapt, to extend those applications to their specific requirements. So there's always a scenario, or very often a scenario, that you have standard code from SAP and you have some custom code, and those need to work together. And there's sometimes this is a bit challenging, sometimes this is not easy to achieve. For example, if there are upgrades for an SAP, that custom extensions still run without problems. So we need a good technology to manage those extensions separately from the standard code. And SAP UI5 flexibility is exactly this. Now, who is doing such changes? It's different roles who are doing such changes. On the left, you can see the developer. That's what you can imagine. A developer is working in code to make complex changes which would affect all end users. On the other side of the spectrum is the end user. You can imagine that you, as an end user, want to make some changes which are relevant just for you. For example, changing the sequence of table columns or hiding a field which is not relevant for you. And obviously, an end user would not work in coding to do this, but rather need some simple drag and drop tools. And there's a third role which we call key user. Now, there are many different terms on how this role is being called. This is a person who has some technical understanding, is maybe writing Excel macros, but is not a developer, not working in code. Also, this person might want to do some changes and provide these changes to a team, to a group of users. So these changes could be adding custom fields, which are relevant for a certain team. Also, this key user would not work in coding, but needs simple tools, for example, using drag and drop. Now, how would this look like? Let's have a look at a little demo. The demo app for this is in the SAP UI5 demo kit. So this is the most important URL you need to know when working with SAP UI5. It's ui5.sap.com. And if you open this, you'll see the UI5 demo kit with documentation, with API references, with lots of coding samples and demo apps. And in the list of demo apps, we have a section on SAP UI5 flexibility, specifically for the key user adaptation. I'm launching this, and you see a Fiori app. It's a simple app to manage products. You have a list of products on the left and some details on the right. Now imagine that I'm a key user. I have a specific authorization, and with that authorization, I can pick the option Personalize UI. I select this, and then the screen changes, and you can see I have this drag and drop pointer. For example, if I say for my team, the supplier field is the most important one, I can drag and drop this to the top. If I say for my team, the average rating is not relevant. Let's make the screen a bit simpler and remove this field. And it's gone. Maybe my team doesn't call this description. We want to have a different field label here. And I can rename the field and call it maybe text. So these are very simple changes. And the important thing is I don't have to talk to my developers in the IT department. I could do these changes by a drag and drop in a very simple tool and then provide them to my end users. The third topic I want to explain a bit more is UI5 evolution. So with UI5, we need to include things which are happening in the space of web development and web technologies. And for this, we started the UI5 evolution project. One of the targets of this project was to improve performance, especially for mobile devices. But there are a couple of other things. So when we are doing this, there's one important aspect we need to consider. We need to be compatible with existing Fiori apps. You can imagine SAP has a large number of Fiori apps. You as a partner or customer have a large number of Fiori apps, and we need to keep them running. So all changes need to be compatible. And this is a main advantage of SAP UI5 compared to maybe non-SAP UI technologies. We always consider this compatibility. So when implementing those changes of the UI5 evolution project, we were able to drastically improve performance. And you can see here a couple of numbers. The numbers are for startup of a Fiori application. So when starting up an application, the screen builds up gradually. There are first UI controls, maybe the background, then gradually more and more UI elements build up until the end user is able to interact with the screen. And you can see here the numbers. There were considerable improvements we achieved. The fourth topic is UI5 web components. A web component delivers SAP's user experience out of the box. The web components brings design, brings enterprise-grade features like accessibility and so on. It comes with HTML and CSS, meaning the UI5 web components can bring up something visual elements on the screen. And it also comes with JavaScript, so there's also some behavior. Imagine a user who has to pick a date on a screen. So you get a date picker, and you also have some behavior. For example, in the date picker, you can page to the next month or next year. So if we hear this is very much the same as with SAP UI5. As with controls from SAP UI5, they offer the same. So you might ask, what's the news here? And the news you can see at the bottom here. This is some HTML coding, which includes a UI5 web component, in this case a button. And it's just plain HTML coding. So there's no SAP stack, no SAP Cloud Platform, no NetWeaver stack involved. It's just plain HTML. And in a second, we'll see why this is important. First, let's have a look at UI5 web components. There's a home page for the web components. And you can test one web component. And this is a date picker, as I mentioned. So you can see the Fiori design. You can pick a date. And you also have some behavior, as I mentioned, to switch to the next month. And on the right, you can see how to implement this in plain HTML. And in the Get Started section here, you have a kind of playground. You see a list of all the UI5 web components, a growing list. So there are simple web components, but also more complex ones, like, for example, a table here. So we have lots of documentation here for developers, and we also have some demo apps. And as you can see here, there are demo apps to be used with React, with Angular or Vue. And this is the important aspect. Let me go back to this slide. If we look at the UI5 web components, just by using HTML, we can make use of them. So as long as you are on a classic SAP stack, SAP Cloud Platform, NetWeaver, you have the full stack of technologies for Fiori, for SAP UI5. Then you're covered, you're good. But if you have other solutions, maybe acquired solutions at SAP, or even non-SAP solutions, and they use different UI technologies, such as React, Angular, or Vue, they all have one thing in common, which is they use HTML. So they can also make use of UI5 web components. So the important thing here is that by using either SAP UI5 or UI5 web component, you can bring a consistent Fiori user experience to your whole SAP portfolio and SAP solutions, and even non-SAP solutions, by the way. So now we have talked about two different options, and there's actually a third option. And let me help you to decide what's the difference and when to use which option. Let's start from the bottom. The minimal thing you want to have is some Fiori design and maybe some behavior. Remember the date picker I showed you. And UI5 web components bring exactly that. If you're an application developer, you might want to have more. You might want to have a full application framework with features like navigation and data binding. Then SAP UI5 is the right choice. Or there's Fiori elements. So imagine you're developing many Fiori apps, not just one, many. Then you want to do this in an efficient way. You don't want to copy all your coding many times, which would be a challenge. For example, think of maintenance. So if this is a scenario, then SAP Fiori Elements is the right approach, and we'll cover that in the next unit. Okay, before I end this unit, I have two more things to mention. One is UI integration cards. When you heard about the Fiori 3 design, you already heard about the cards. They are very flexible from design aspect, flexible in size, flexible in what they can display. But they're also flexible from technology point of view. So just by configuring them with a JSON coding, you are able to use them in many different host environments. So you can see this is another effort to bring a consistent Fiori design across a portfolio of many different products. And we can have a look at the card explorer. I just need to launch the demo kit here again. So also in the demo kit, there's a tools section. And in the tools section, we have the cards explorer here. And there's an option to explore the samples. And again, you see on the left, different card types, different card features. For example, the list card. And on the right, you see the JSON coding to configure this card. For example, I can change here. There's a header list card with top 5 products. And I can change this here in this playground for openSAP. So again, it's very simple to configure this. It's independent of different technology stacks, and it can be used in many places. Now, this is the last point I need to mention. It is OpenUI5. In order to open up SAP UI5 to the open source community, we created OpenUI5. It can be consumed via NPM or GitHub and is being developed by SAP in collaboration with the open source community. So you can leverage Fiori user experience, the UI5 controls, even outside of any SAP context. And many companies do that very successfully. So let me wrap up this unit. So you learned that SAP UI5 is a powerful UI technology for business apps. SAP UI5 supports consistency with the Fiori 3 design. It supports performance with the UI5 Evolution project. And it supports openness with OpenUI5 and the UI5 web components. So that concludes this unit, and the next unit will give you an overview of SAP Fiori elements. Thank you and goodbye.